To your morning newscast right here on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5. I am Joshua Van Sleckman. Thank you for joining us. Just before we get to the news in detail, let's bring to you today's front page comment titled Time to End Abuse of Public Funds. The expenses the former minister in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, Annette Ferguson, is alleged to have incurred on one trip may tempt one to believe that this was in relation to a return trip on the Far East. But Annette Ferguson only went to Wakenham, and the near $1 million was only for her visit. The expenses assault the sense and insult the dignity of all Guyanese. And if no Guyanese is disturbed by this level of extravagance, we at this newscast and newspaper are offended and outraged. We are sickened because we know where there is smoke, there is bound to be fire. And there may be many more similar circumstances involving others which are yet to be unearthed or which may never be known. It sets an unhealthy precedent, especially for the present ruling cabal, who may be tempted to believe that apart from approving contracts to firms owned by their children, they can engage in similar abuse of public funds. On every occasion, that public official, including elected officials, are allowed to escape sanction for financial extravagance. It means less will be available for our policemen, our nurses, and our teachers. And now let's head to the news in detail right here on Kaieteur Radio. I am Joshua Van Sleckman. Government's proposed plan to land the gas ashore project at Wales would be considered an act of lunacy, says Shadow Oil and Gas Minister David Paterson. Paterson, during his contribution to the 2021 budget debates, reported that the coalition, when in office, had conducted several studies pinpointing different sites for the project. Wales, he outlined, was one of the areas examined by the multi-stakeholder group and was not deemed visible, and it would be involved placing the gas pipeline at the mouth of Guyana's busiest river. According to Paterson, the proposed 2023 timeline outlined by the government for the project to be completed. Paterson added that the supply of gas will be interrupted for at least 2 or 3 days yearly to support routine maintenance of the equipment. Sticking with oil and gas, Minister of Natural Resources Vikram Bharat had told Kaieteur News in August last year that after the Canadian consultant Alison Redford spearheaded the review of the Payara project, the findings will be made public. 2 weeks after he made that commitment, the Payara Field Development Plan was approved. The approval was announced on September 30, 2020. The project is slated to come on stream in 2024, producing up to 220,000 barrels of oil a day. The government had published the Payara production license and the environmental permit, but not the finding of the team headed by the controversial Canadian consultant Alison Redford. It has been 5 months since that approval, and the public is still waiting. And why should the findings of Redford's review be published? The review process was marred by the grave environmental concerns about the dumping of produced water into the ocean and the flaring of natural gas. Advocates for a better deal had urged governments to withhold the approval of the Payara to force Stabroek Block Co Ventures, ExxonMobil, Hess and CNOOC to give Guyana a renegotiated production sharing agreement with a bigger share of the revenue. Transparency Advocate beckoned government to wait to develop its capacity to monitor and quickly audit the expenses. ExxonMobil had already claimed for first recovery. And the former Speaker of the National Assembly, Ralph Ramkaran, tells Nadir to stop vulgarity in Parliament. Former Speaker of the House, Ralph Ramkaran, said in his column, The Conversation Tree, that the person holding office has a duty to stop vulgarity by the Member of Parliament. The Speaker has a duty to stop the vulgarity, he said, and there are provisions in the standing orders to deal with members who violate the rules as to orders by shouting across the aisle or making vulgar, otherwise offensive remarks even while sitting. This followed a week of vulgar, distasteful remarks made by MPs during their budget speeches and in their heckling of their colleagues when budget debate opened last week. As the week went by, the racist, homophobic and sexist in MPs' remarks began to abate as Kaieteur reported on it, and the public shamed them in newspaper letters, speeches, as well as on social media. In response, the Speaker of the House, Manzoor Nadir, warned the media about reporting on heckling and told the media that it is open in itself to be sued. Ramkaran said that the press is absolutely right to bring the show to bring the slow, decent vulgarity into the public domain and to print it. You're listening to your morning newscast right here on Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Governments around the world make big money when they award oil and gas contract by open competitive bidding process. And this is the route the Suriname government took when it announced in November 2020 that it has 8 oil blocks up for auction. When asked to give some insight on the bidding process, Rudolph Elias, the chief executive officer of Suriname state oil company Statoil, related that it gives preference to those oil companies that propose to make it an operator in 10 years' time. He boasted that despite Statoil's strict fixed collections such as a 6% royalty and a 36% revenue collection and its 20% participating interest, the state oil company has seen a huge interest from international oil companies looking to secure the 8 blocks. And in your COVID news, Region 4 accounts for 23 of the 35 new COVID-19 infection. The Ministry of Health yesterday reported 35 new COVID-19 infection, 23 of which were recorded in Region 4. The other regions recording new infections were Regions 3, 5, and 10. The cases total increased to 8,585. 4 patients are in the COVID-19 intensive care unit, another 9 in institutional quarantine, 23 in institutional isolation, and 391 in home isolation. Additionally, a total of 7,972 persons have recovered to date, with 1 new recovery recorded yesterday. The COVID-19 death toll remains at 195. And finally, at this time, relatives to take legal action against New Amsterdam Hospital after woman and unborn baby die. The New Amsterdam Hospital has once again come under fire after a woman and her baby died following a transfer from the institution to the Georgetown Public Hospital. Relatives have criticized the institution and the medical staff who attended to the pregnant woman, while noting their firm belief that some form of negligence must have taken place on the part of the hospital. Dead is Vanessa Sugnio, 32, of Street Williamsburg, and her stillborn baby. And that's the news in the moment. Let's remind you that you can get the full details of these stories and much more by picking up a copy of the Kaieteur News at a newsstand near you, or head across our website at kaieteurnewsonline.com.